a spark that ignited a firestorm, the Marco Polo Bridge incident and the descent into war. The night of July 7, 1937, on the outskirts of Beijing, a seemingly minor event occurred that would have a catastrophic ripple effect. The Marco Polo Bridge incident, a clash between Chinese and Japanese forces, ignited a full-scale war that would devastate both nations and reshape the geopolitical landscape of East Asia. We will delve into the historical context that fueled tensions, analyze the events surrounding the incident, and explore the devastating consequences that unfolded. The roots of the conflict lay in Japan's expansionist ambitions. Fueled by a potent cocktail of nationalism, militarism, and resource scarcity, Japan sought to establish a vast empire in Asia. Manchuria, a resource-rich region in northern China, had already fallen to Japanese forces in 1931, setting the stage for further aggression. The Chinese nationalist government, led by Chiang Kai-shek, was determined to resist further Japanese encroachment. Tensions simmered along the border between Japanese-occupied Manchuria and China proper. Both sides engaged in skirmishes and accusations of border violations. The Marco Polo Bridge, a strategically crucial location near Beijing, became a flashpoint of heightened tension. On the fateful night of July 7, a routine Japanese military exercise near the bridge escalated into a firefight. The precise details of who fired the first shot remain a subject of debate. The Japanese claimed that a missing soldier was a cause for a wider offensive. The Chinese, on the other hand, maintained they were defending their territory from an unprovoked attack. Regardless of the precise sequence of events, the Marco Polo Bridge incident served as a convenient pretext for Japan to escalate its aggression. The Japanese military, emboldened by a sense of national superiority and fueled by expansionist ambitions, launched a full-scale invasion of China. The initial strategy aimed for a swift and decisive victory, but the Chinese forces, though poorly equipped, offered fierce resistance. The war, initially dubbed the China Incident by the Japanese, quickly spiraled into a brutal and protracted conflict. The Second Sino-Japanese War, as it came to be known, had a devastating impact on both nations. Millions of lives were lost, and vast swathes of China were left in ruins. The brutality of the Japanese occupation, marked by atrocities like the Nanjing Massacre, further strained relations and fueled Chinese nationalism. The war also had significant international repercussions. The inaction of Western powers emboldened Japan and served as a prelude to wider aggression in the Pacific. The Marco Polo Bridge incident, though a seemingly isolated event, serves as a pivotal turning point in history. It ignited a war that reshaped East Asia's political landscape and contributed to the outbreak of the Second World War. Furthermore, the incident underscores the dangers of unchecked militarism and the fragility of peace in the face of expansionist ambitions. Understanding the Marco Polo Bridge incident is crucial for comprehending the complex dynamics of the Second Sino-Japanese War. It sheds light on the factors that fueled tensions between China and Japan and the broader geopolitical forces at play in the lead-up to the Second World War. Ultimately, the incident serves as a stark reminder of the catastrophic consequences of unchecked aggression and the importance of resolving international disputes peacefully. A descent into barbarity, the Nanjing Massacre. The winter of 1937 saw a horrific episode in modern history, the Nanjing Massacre. We will delve into the saga of the Sino-Japanese War, analyze the events surrounding the massacre, and explore the devastating impact it had on the Chinese city of Nanjing and its people. The Nanjing Massacre was not an isolated incident but a culmination of factors rooted in Japan's aggressive expansionism in Asia. Fueled by a potent mix of nationalism, militarism, and a desire for resources, Japan embarked on a campaign to establish a vast empire. The Japanese Imperial Army, emboldened by initial victories, advanced towards Nanjing, then the capital of China. The city fell on December 13, 1937, marking the beginning of a reign of terror. The events that unfolded in Nanjing defy description. Japanese soldiers, seemingly unconstrained by any sense of discipline or humanity, embarked on a brutal spree of mass killings, rape, looting, and arson. Chinese civilians, soldiers who had surrendered, and even unarmed prisoners of war were systematically targeted. Mass executions became commonplace, carried out by gunfire, drowning, or beheading. The Nanjing Massacre remains a subject of intense historical debate, particularly concerning the exact death toll. Estimates range from hundreds of thousands to over 300,000, with no definitive consensus. Regardless of the precise number, the scale of the brutality is undeniable. The massacre, documented through survivor testimonies and graphic photographs, serves as a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity in wartime. The impact of the Nanjing Massacre was devastating for Nanjing and its residents. The city, once a cultural and economic hub, lay in ruins. The trauma inflicted on survivors cast a long shadow, with the psychological scars lingering for generations. The massacre also strained relations between China and Japan for decades, hindering reconciliation efforts. Understanding the Nanjing Massacre requires delving into the ideological underpinnings of Japanese imperialism during the period. The concept of Hakko Ikkyu, 8 corners of the world under one roof, fueled a sense of racial superiority and a belief in Japan's right to dominate Asia. This ideology, combined with the breakdown of military discipline and the dehumanization of the enemy, contributed to the horrific acts committed in Nanjing. The Nanjing Massacre serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked militarism and the importance of upholding international law during wartime. It also highlights the crucial role of holding perpetrators accountable for war crimes and atrocities. The massacre's legacy continues to resonate today, urging us to remain vigilant against the rise of nationalism and ethnic hatred in the pursuit of peace and global security. A betrayal of peace, the Anschluss and the shattering of Austrian sovereignty. The year 1938 witnessed a pivotal moment in European history: the Anschluss, the annexation of Austria by Nazi Germany. We will delve into the historical context that fueled German expansionist ambitions, analyze the methods employed to achieve the Anschluss, and explore the devastating impact it had on Austria and the wider European landscape. The seeds of the Anschluss were sown in the aftermath of the First World War. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, a once powerful multinational state, had dissolved, giving rise to the Republic of German Austria. This newly formed nation, yearning for unification with Germany, was hampered by economic hardship and political instability. Meanwhile, in Germany, the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party fueled a fervent desire for pan-Germanism, the unification of all German-speaking people under a single Reich. Austria, with its predominantly German population and shared cultural heritage, became a prime target for Nazi expansion. Propaganda portrayed the Anschluss as a natural homecoming, a liberation from the shackles of a failed state and a reunion with the greater German nation. However, the reality masked a sinister agenda: the forceful subjugation of Austria and the elimination of any opposition to Nazi ideology. The methods employed by Hitler to achieve the Anschluss were a potent mix of political intimidation, economic pressure, and orchestrated manipulation. Nazi operatives within Austria fomented unrest and instability, weakening the Austrian government. Economic threats and the prospect of German financial support further pressured the Austrian leadership. Ultimately, a combination of these tactics culminated in the resignation of the Austrian Chancellor in March 1938, paving the way for a Nazi takeover. German troops, met with orchestrated cheers and displays of Nazi symbolism, crossed the Austrian border on March 12, 1938. The Anschluss was presented as a bloodless triumph, a carefully staged spectacle of so-called voluntary unification. However, beneath the veneer of popular support lay a chilling reality: the suppression of dissent, the imprisonment of political opponents, and the persecution of Austria's Jewish population. The impact of the Anschluss was far-reaching. For Austria, it meant the end of its sovereignty and the integration into the Nazi state. Austria's democratic institutions were dismantled, and the nation became a launching pad for further German aggression in Europe. The Anschluss signaled Hitler's disregard for international agreements and emboldened his expansionist ambitions. The international community's response to the Anschluss was weak and ineffectual. Western democracies, preoccupied with appeasement and internal anxieties, failed to take a strong stance against Nazi aggression. This failure emboldened Hitler and ultimately contributed to the outbreak of the Second World War. The historical significance of the Anschluss lies in its role as a catalyst for further conflict. It shattered the fragile peace established after the First World War and exposed the vulnerabilities of a Europe hesitant to confront rising totalitarian powers. Furthermore, the Anschluss highlighted the dangers of unchecked nationalism and the ease with which democratic institutions can be manipulated for expansionist goals. Understanding the Anschluss is crucial for comprehending the roots of the Second World War. It serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of appeasement and the importance of upholding international law in the face of aggression. The Anschluss also underscores the enduring value of self-determination and the fragility of peace in the face of expansionist ideologies. A flawed compromise: the Munich Agreement and the appeasement of Nazi aggression. The Munich Agreement of 1938 stands as a pivotal, yet controversial, chapter in European history. We will delve into the escalating tensions leading up to the agreement, analyze the key players and their motivations, and explore the far-reaching consequences of this appeasement effort. The Sudetenland, a region within Czechoslovakia with a predominantly German population, became the focal point of a burgeoning crisis. Fueled by Nazi Germany's pan-German ideology and Adolf Hitler's expansionist ambitions, demands for self-determination or even unification with Germany grew increasingly strident within the Sudetenland. The Czechoslovakian government, led by President Edvard Beneš, resisted these pressures, fearing the dismemberment of the nation. The crisis escalated dramatically in 1938. Propaganda orchestrated by Nazi Germany stoked tensions within the Sudetenland, with reports of violence and oppression against the German minority. Hitler, capitalizing on this manufactured crisis, threatened military intervention if the Sudetenland was not ceded to Germany. The international community, particularly Britain and France, found themselves caught in a precarious position. Apprehensive of another devastating war, they sought to appease Hitler through diplomatic means. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, a fervent advocate for appeasement, played a central role in these efforts. He believed that concessions to Hitler could preserve peace and prevent a wider conflict. The Munich Agreement, brokered by Chamberlain, French Premier Édouard Daladier, Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, and Hitler himself, aimed to resolve the Sudetenland crisis. The agreement essentially mandated the Czechoslovakian government to cede the Sudetenland to Germany. The Czechoslovakian delegation was excluded from the negotiations, highlighting the blatant disregard for their nation's sovereignty. The immediate consequences of the Munich Agreement were celebrated by some as a triumph of diplomacy and a means to prevent war. However, the long-term ramifications were far more sinister. Appeasement emboldened Hitler, who viewed it as a sign of Western weakness. The agreement fueled his sense of invincibility and paved the way for further aggression, ultimately culminating in the outbreak of the Second World War. For Czechoslovakia, the Munich Agreement marked a devastating betrayal. Their territorial integrity was violated, and their security was compromised. The nation ultimately fell under German occupation less than 6 months later, shattering the hope for a peaceful resolution. The legacy of the Munich Agreement remains a subject of intense debate. Critics denounce it as a failed policy of appeasement that emboldened Hitler and ultimately led to war. Proponents argue that it bought valuable time for Western democracies to prepare for the inevitable conflict. Regardless of interpretation, the Munich Agreement serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of appeasement in the face of totalitarian aggression. Beyond the immediate historical context, the Munich Agreement offers broader lessons for international relations. It highlights the importance of upholding international law and collective security in the face of territorial ambitions. Furthermore, it underscores the need for a nuanced approach to diplomacy, balancing appeasement with clear consequences for aggression. The Munich Agreement serves as a cautionary tale, urging us to recognize the dangers of unchecked expansionism and the importance of a united response against threats to global peace. The Night of Broken Glass, Kristallnacht and the escalation of anti-Jewish persecution in Nazi Germany. Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, stands as a pivotal moment in the escalating persecution of Jews in Nazi Germany. We will delve into the historical context that fueled anti-Semitism, analyze the events surrounding the pogrom, and explore the devastating impact it had on the Jewish community and the trajectory of the Holocaust. By 1938, the Nazi regime had already subjected Germany's Jewish population to years of discrimination and violence. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 had stripped Jews of their citizenship and fundamental rights. Economic boycotts and state-sanctioned violence had become commonplace. Kristallnacht did not erupt in a vacuum. It marked a brutal intensification of existing anti-Semitic policies. The catalyst for the pogrom was the assassination of Ernst von Rath, a German diplomat, by Herschel Grinchborn, a young Polish Jew. While the murder was reprehensible, the Nazi propaganda machine seized upon it as a pretext to orchestrate a nationwide attack on Jews. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels, invoking a fabricated narrative of a widespread Jewish conspiracy, incited violence against Jewish people and their property. On the night of November 9, 1938, SA paramilitary forces, along with members of the SS and regular police, launched coordinated attacks across Germany and Austria. Synagogues were set ablaze, Jewish businesses were vandalized and looted, and homes were ransacked. Over 1,000 synagogues were desecrated or destroyed, and countless Jewish-owned shops were left in ruins. The violence was horrific, with over 90 Jews murdered and 30,000 arrested, many sent to concentration camps. The aftermath of Kristallnacht was devastating for the Jewish community. Beyond the immediate physical harm and property damage, the pogrom instilled a chilling sense of fear and vulnerability. The illusion of safety was shattered, and the possibility of further violence loomed large. Kristallnacht marked a turning point, demonstrating the regime's willingness to escalate violence against its Jewish population with impunity. The international response to Kristallnacht was muted. While condemnation was voiced, concrete action was scarce. Western democracies, preoccupied with appeasement and the looming threat of war, failed to take a strong stance against Nazi aggression. This inaction emboldened Hitler and paved the way for further persecution, culminating in the mass deportations and genocide of the Holocaust. Kristallnacht holds a significant place in the memory of the Holocaust. It serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked anti-Semitism and the ease with which propaganda can incite violence. Furthermore, it underscores the importance of international action in the face of escalating human rights abuses. Understanding Kristallnacht is crucial for comprehending the systematic annihilation of European Jewry. It serves as a chilling example of how prejudice can escalate from discrimination to mass violence. The pogrom highlights the critical role of bystanders and the international community in speaking out against hate and defending those targeted for persecution. The legacy of Kristallnacht continues to resonate today. It serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked prejudice and the importance of promoting tolerance and understanding. By acknowledging this dark chapter in history, we can work towards a future free from unnecessary hatred and violence. A deal forged in treachery. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact of 1939, signed by the foreign ministers of Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, stands as a pivotal moment in the descent towards the Second World War. We will delve into the complex web of factors that led to the agreement, analyze the terms of the pact and its secret protocol, and explore the devastating consequences for Eastern Europe. The signing of the pact did not occur in a vacuum. Growing anxieties and strategic calculations fueled the agreement. Nazi Germany, harboring expansionist ambitions in Eastern Europe, sought to avoid a two-front war with the Soviet Union. The USSR, wary of German aggression and disillusioned with negotiations with Western powers, viewed the pact as a way to secure its western border and potentially expand its own sphere of influence. The public agreement, signed on August 23, 1939, presented a facade of non-aggression between the two nations. However, a secret protocol attached to the pact revealed the true intentions behind the agreement. This document divided Eastern Europe into German and Soviet spheres of influence. The pact effectively greenlit the invasion of Poland, a nation seen as a potential buffer against further aggression. The consequences of the Molotov-Ribbentrop pact were far-reaching and devastating. The Soviet invasion of eastern Poland on September 17, 1939, just 2 weeks after the signing of the pact, marked the end of the Interbellum, and the beginning of the Second World War in Europe. The pact empowered Nazi Germany to launch its invasion of Poland without fear of Soviet intervention, ultimately leading to the brutal occupation and dismemberment of the nation. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania also fell victim to the pact's secret protocol. These nations, despite maintaining their independence in the interwar period, were subjected to Soviet pressure and ultimately annexed by the USSR in 1940. This act of aggression violated their sovereignty and subjected their populations to decades of repression under Soviet rule. Finland, another nation designated as within the Soviet sphere of influence, fiercely resisted Soviet invasion attempts in the Winter War of 1939 to 1940. Though ultimately forced to cede territory, Finland's resilience exposed the limitations of Soviet military power and shattered the illusion of a united front between Germany and the USSR. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact's legacy remains a subject of intense debate. For some, it represents a cynical act of realpolitik, a pragmatic move by both nations to secure their own interests. Others condemn it as a blatant act of aggression, a betrayal of international law that paved the way for the suffering of millions in Eastern Europe. Understanding the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is crucial for comprehending the complex origins of the Second World War. It highlights the dangers of appeasement and the willingness of powerful nations to sacrifice the sovereignty of smaller states for their own geopolitical gain. Furthermore, the pact serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of totalitarian ambitions and the fragility of peace in the face of unchecked aggression. The pact's effects transcended the immediate events of the Second World War. The Soviet occupation of Eastern Europe, initiated under the pact's provisions, extended for nearly half a century. The resulting social, political, and economic changes had a profound impact on the region, shaping its trajectory for decades after the war's conclusion. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact serves as a cautionary tale for the international community. It underscores the importance of upholding international law, promoting collective security, and resisting the temptations of appeasement in the face of aggression. By acknowledging this dark chapter in history, we can work towards a future where dialogue and diplomacy prevail over violence and the violation of national sovereignty. This is the final chapter of the Interbellum series. In future series we will cover the Second World War, the subsequent Nuremberg trials, and the space race.